So here I am, Inveraray Jail. Let's see if it's as spooky inside as they reckon. So here we are at Inveraray Jail in Argyll, one of the best preserved historic prisons in the UK. Opened in 1820, it replaced the old overcrowded toll booths where prisoners of every age and crime were often crammed together. At the time this was considered a revolutionary prison. Prisoners had individual cells, regular routines and hard labour, all designed to reform them rather than simply punish them. Of course, reform is a relative term. If you were expecting a luxury stay, you'd have been sorely disappointed. Over the years, thousands of prisoners passed through these doors. Some were guilty of murder or violent crimes, but many were locked up for offences we'd barely think twice about today, such as stealing food, poaching, or petty theft driven by poverty. With so much suffering and misery under one roof, it's perhaps no surprise that many visitors and staff claim the prison is still occupied by more than just tourists. Thumbscrews, ouch, that'd reduce shoplifting if it was reintroduced. Probably put a stop to hitchhiking too. Although thumbscrews were more common before prison was built, they remind us of just how brutal justice in Scotland could once be. Compared with torture, imprisonment almost sounded humane. Almost. Many people visiting today have reported sudden cold spots around the punishment displays, while others say they feel as though someone is standing beside them, even when they're completely alone. Yeah, I know the feeling. Imprisoned for fornication, if that were today, half of Facebook would be inside, and people like Bonnie Blue would get a life sentence. It sounds ridiculous now, but society was very different 200 years ago. Morality and the law often went hand in hand, and behaviour we now consider private could have serious consequences. Children were imprisoned here too. Some were barely 8 years old, sentenced for stealing clothes or food simply to survive. Imagine being that age and walking through these doors. Frightening. The EMF, the Electromagnetic Field reader, went mad in the old courtroom. This courtroom would have been one of the most intimidating places in Scotland. Prisoners stood here knowing that within minutes they might lose their freedom, be transported halfway around the world, or in some cases face execution. Some visitors have reported hearing the whispered conversations in empty courtrooms. Others claim they've seen a shadow standing where the judge once sat before vanishing completely. Whether it's the atmosphere or something harder to explain, well, I'll let you decide, but definitely something's not right in this room. The EMF went mad on the stairs. Interestingly, staircases seem to crop up again and again in stories from this prison. Staff have spoken about hearing footsteps climbing behind them, only to turn around and there's nobody there. Some visitors have even reported seeing a dark figure disappear around the corner before they reach the top. Exercise yard? You'd have to do sit-ups. Not going to go for a jog, are you? Exercise was less about keeping fit and more about preventing prisoners from becoming completely inactive. Fresh air was considered important, but don't imagine laps around the courtyard. Prisoners often walk slowly in silence under the watchful eye of guards. I spoke to the guy dressed as a prison guard, and he hasn't actually seen anything, but he's heard voices and rattling chains when there shouldn't have been any sounds. Reports like that aren't unusual here. Former employees have spoken about the doors moving, unexplained bangs and voices echoing through the empty corridors after everyone's gone home. Of course old buildings make noises, but not everyone is convinced that's all it is, and neither am I after this visit. Stairs to the cells, EMF registers nothing. Ironically, some of the areas with the biggest reputations for paranormal activity produce absolutely nothing at all from this. If ghosts do exist, they clearly don't read the script. The EMF goes mad. Now that's better. The old cell blocks are where many visitors say they feel watched. Some have described seeing someone standing inside an empty cell before it suddenly disappears. Others say they hear breathing when there's nobody nearby. You might have seen the camera shudder slightly, and I really thought that someone had put their hand on my shoulder at this point. No one was around though. Hairs on the back of my neck standing up like each individual one is standing to attention. It was creepy. One of the most commonly reported experiences here isn't actually seeing a ghost, it's feeling one. People have described someone brushing past them, touching their shoulder, or standing incredibly close before realising nobody else is there. Whether it's suggestion, imagination or something unexplained, it's certainly an odd feeling, and a feeling I've felt for myself. Yeah, it's scary. This is where they heated the water up. I bet the fornicators section, I bet they just got cold. Despite appearances, prisoners weren't left completely filthy. Hygiene was considered important, partly to prevent disease spreading through the prison, although I'd imagine hot might have been open to interpretation. Up more stairs. This building certainly wasn't designed for anyone with bad knees. It said one elderly female spirit has been reported on these upper landings, quietly watching visitors before disappearing into the walls. across to the new prison that's still old. The new prison was an expansion as inmate numbers increased. Like many Victorian prisons, it reflected changing ideas about discipline, separating prisoners more effectively while making supervision easier for staff. New then, still ancient now. The coal bunker escape. Someone climbed up the coal and out the building. It wasn't the only attempted escape, but it has to be one of the cleverest. Using the coal bunker to reach freedom must have seemed like a brilliant idea. Difficult part comes afterwards, trying to explain why you looked like you lost a fight with a chimney. Washroom. The EMF goes mad. Must be a ghostly bather. Washrooms are surprisingly common locations for reported paranormal experiences. Visitors have described hearing splashing water when there is none running, along with faint voices that seem to disappear the moment you try to follow them. Shanks get everywhere, don't they? If you visited Dracula's castle, you'd find either a Shanks toilet or a Shanks sink. I'm sure of it. I reckon Shanks had toilets and sinks in caves back in Neanderthal times. The whipping room. Love the fact that there's holes for your arms in the table. We want you to be comfortable whilst you're being whipped. Corporal punishment was intended as a public warning to others. Prison wasn't simply about locking people away. It was about making sure everyone else knew exactly what would happen if they broke the law. Standing in this room today, it's easy to imagine the fear people must have felt. It's no surprise some visitors say that this is one of the most unsettling rooms in the entire prison. again to another floor. By this point I'm convinced the architect owns shares in a staircase company. Many paranormal investigators have claimed these upper floors produce some of the strongest reactions, with sudden temperature drops and unexplained EMF spikes regularly being reported. The EMF goes off at different points. Some I have been to before. It's almost as though someone is literally following me. That idea of being followed comes up surprisingly often. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps matching their own pace, only for the sound to stop the moment they turn round. Others say they feel as though someone is walking just behind them throughout the prison. The original escort van. Compared with modern prison transport, this offered very little comfort. Prisoners would often travel long distances in cramped conditions, not knowing what awaited them at the other end. Not exactly 5-star travel. Spooky corridor. Feels like someone just walked through me. Hairs on the back of my neck go. EMF goes mad. I'll actually be glad to get out of here at this point. So there we have it, Inveraray Jail, and I have to say, one of the most atmospheric, spooky places I've ever seen. I'll show you the. Never had much faith in these machines. Don't really move much. 2 places I've ever been, they've gone on to sort of the 3rd or 4th light, but that went whappy in certain areas in there. It was almost as though we were being followed. Right, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and please like the video. Till next time, bye for now.